Hey everyone, thanks for joining. We're going to get started here pretty soon. We're just letting everyone else join. Be back in a minute. All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. We've got a number of folks joining us. You're either joining us through Teams or YouTube. If you're on Teams, we'd love to have more of a discussion with you. If you post a question in chat, we're able to take you off mute and ask you some more clarifying questions. If you're on YouTube, just go ahead and post your questions in chat. If you're new to Office Hours, welcome. I'm Emma, and I'm joined with Matt. This is our monthly office hours that we do here at Bulb Digital, and the gist of this is really to just hear from all of you, hear what challenges you're having with Microsoft 365, whether it be sort of more strategy questions or technical questions. We are open to it all, and we do already have a couple questions teed up, so we're going to jump into those. I know we've got one from Mary and one from Rachel. But just to give you guys a little bit more background on what Matt and I do, so you kind of know the types of questions we're looking for. I'm in project management, and just this morning I was writing a blog about Loop and how to use Loop for project management, so we'd love to talk about that. And I'll plug Matt. He's our resident expert on all things communication, all things collaboration, and honestly, all things Microsoft. So really, any question goes. Yeah, happy to hear from you guys. And like I said, drop those in chat. And then if you're on our Teams meeting, we can have more of a conversation. I think that's it for housekeeping. Yeah, let's dive into our first question.
Yeah, Mitch, do you have the first question?
Yes, the first question is there somewhere in Microsoft Teams that I can go to use as a testing ground, somewhere that maybe people won't see, somewhere that I can play around?
Yeah, so I think when you think about Teams and what it's doing, you can categorize that into a couple different things. Number one, if you're trying to test out specifically to meetings, like, hey, I want to make sure my audio is working, I want to make sure my video is working, I want to make sure all of that's going. There is a special mode within Teams where you can test out those things. They call it an echo test, where you can, basically start a meeting with yourself and say something, and then it'll play it back for you. But that's really specific. I feel like your question is a little bit more broad, more like, I'm not comfortable with Teams, and I don't want to make a mistake in front of a bunch of people or do something bad that'll mess up my tenant or, cause a problem. And I would say that kind of comes down into a couple different levels. So if you're just a regular user, maybe even as much as like I'm a person that's in charge of a team, so a team shared workspace, you can create a separate team shared workspace and work in that other workspace. That would be one way to do it. Other than that, there isn't a lot of options for you. In order to really test something out, you would really need to create a different user. So it wouldn't be a different application as much as a different user. So you would log in as a separate user that you could, message your other user with or kind of play around with, if you will. But there's not really a lot of ways to go about that. Go ahead.
I was going to say, with all that said, which is probably where you're going with this, I feel like Microsoft has built a tenant experience where you don't have to be super afraid that you're going to mess stuff up that you can't undo.
Yeah, so the thing that's
probably where you're
the next
going.
thing I was saying is like from a tenant level, if you're an admin, I mean, it's challenging. You don't want to make a bunch of setting changes at the tenant level that kind of change everything for your users without you knowing it. But if you're a regular user, which I think is what the experience we're talking about, there's not much you can do that's going to break it.
Right.
The big thing is that you want to be open, and everyone, both people receiving messages and people sending messages should be understanding about what is going on. What the situation is for someone who may not be familiar with the tool. A lot of the conversations we have about open communications, like how we approach communications, is very much, it's a two-way street, and having everybody understand what's going on with it. Mm-hmm. So there's not an app. There's not a special mode. And for regular users, normal users, there's not really a great option for you. If you're a tenant admin or you're a developer, you do have the option of requesting and getting access to what they call a developer tenant, a developer Office 365 tenant.
Shout out to Tony for posting that in the chat.
Oh, yeah. Yep. However, that is really targeted for developers. So if you go create that and start to use it, number one, it takes a request. You got to go through a request process. You have to, you got to get it, which is often above what most regular users are dealing with. Once you get in and you start using it, Microsoft's going to expect you to be continuing to use it for developer purposes, to actually develop something on it. So creating a SharePoint site or a module or a component or something. That's the intent of what it is.
So I want to latch on, though, to one part of that question, just the phrase, I want to be able to go in and play around with the tool. And I just want to encourage this person, I think it was Mary that asked it, you should feel completely comfortable if you're a regular user and you want to just click around, test some things out. Nothing that you can really, I don't want to shoot myself in the foot on this one, but nothing really that you can do as a regular user can't be undone if you accidentally deleted, an entire folder of stuff, but you would know if you were doing that. Mm-hmm. So I do want to encourage you. It feels like if you are just that regular, just trying to play around, learn the tool, you should be able to do that in your environment without feeling too much fear that you're going to mess anything up. And then obviously have that sort of sense of experimentation and bring that to your leadership of, hey, I want to try something new, and get them to support you. And then kind of have that awareness of maybe we're going to have to roll some things back if I do make changes. But ultimately, if you find out a new way of doing something that adds value to the team, I think that's, definitely the way to go.
Jay over on YouTube
I was just gonna say,
we create a team called Teams Playground.
Oh, love that. Yeah.
Direct people to that.
Yep.
Yes.
Great. There's definitely some things that as an administrator of a system you can do to try to help promote that. Mm-hmm. Also, letting people know when somebody's just starting to get to use it, that kind of thing. You shouldn't be afraid to try some stuff out. And don't be afraid to say, oops, I did something wrong. Yeah. That's okay. Obviously, as Emma was saying, don't go deleting stuff.
If you're getting error messages,
you can still get it back for the most part, but there are some things that you can do that will just make it more difficult, but those should be pretty obvious to most people, right? I don't feel like that's probably what Mary, you're asking about is I want to go delete a bunch of stuff and see how that works. Yep.
But I do love Jay's recommendation, Teams Playground. That's great. That's a good one. All right, we've got another question from YouTube. You're welcome, Mary, for that. She said thank you for that answer. All right, let's get to Rachel's question. Happy New Year to you as well, Rachel. She wrote here, I'd love some tips for getting started time tracking and monitoring time wasting, which when I first read it, I thought, oh man, she wants to make sure her team's not wasting their time. But then Rachel, you followed this up and you said, I mean monitoring my own, not monitoring others. So it looks like you're really trying to see how much time you're spending on different things, and probably, trying to create an efficient process around time tracking. What are your thoughts, Matt?
So my first thing is Viva Insights. It's a simple way to do some of those things. It's basically an application in Teams that you can use that will give you some things like, this is how much time you spend in meetings, this is how much time you spend collaborating with other people. It only really works as long as all of your work is in one tenant, one account, one space. Like with our work, it's not very useful because we have lots of customers with lots of calendars, with lots of different ways that we're communicating with people, and so it's not quite as effective for us as it might be for many other customers. But I would definitely look into that as an easy way to kind of get a litmus test, if you will, about you're spending a lot of time in meetings all the time, you're doing a lot of this all the time, you're doing a lot of that all the time. But that's like a very passive way. You're letting the system kind of figure it out. Beyond that, what we have done, what we do here, and what we've seen other people recommend, and what we would recommend is actually tracking your time, right? We do it because we kind of have to. It's the way we're accountable to ourselves. It's the way we bill. It's the way we pay. All of those things. But like every week, when you go through and you time track and you look at what you did, you can pretty easily see, where you're spending your time, what you're doing. We use a tool called Harvest to do that for our purposes. But ultimately, even if it was just an Excel spreadsheet, and if you just wanted to do it for 1 week or 10 days or something, just documenting like every hour what was the main thing that you did, it can be pretty insightful about what's going on and how you're working with things.
And like Matt said, we track time as a business, and that's just part of the way we operate. But Mitch and I were actually part of a workplace challenge. I want to say it was like this week last year. It was right at the beginning of the new year. And we did the manual Excel tracking on top of our regular tracking. But we literally tracked everything that we did in that day, even if it was, 15 minutes checking LinkedIn on your phone while you're working. And to have to keep yourself accountable in that way, it worked wonders on me, and I only tracked it for maybe 3 days. And it just really told me a lot about my habits and where I was kind of wasting time, where I wasn't realizing, oh my gosh, I spent, 30 minutes logging emails. Like, how can I make that more efficient? So I would definitely suggest that. If we can find that template that we used, I can send that over to you, Rachel. But anyway, it was a really great challenge, and I would recommend anyone to do it. It's a little painful to have to write down everything you do in the day. But
it is
insightful, and I think it helps shed light on just some of your bad habits of where you might be wasting time.
Rachel, if you go to the contact form on our website and just send us a note there, we can try to follow up and get you that stuff.
Yeah. All right. Looks like we've got another question from YouTube. Let's see. Any suggestion to prevent multiple runs of the same triggering with the Outlook connector, pulling new updated calendar items to the default SharePoint online events list? Is new Outlook to blame?
Yeah. Multiple runs isn't the same thing necessarily as duplicate runs, and it's unclear whether or not creating a new calendar item is creating actually multiple trigger events, or whether or not it's actually a create followed by a modify, which would seem like it's a duplicate run or a multiple run. But the two things that I would say is if you're trying to do new and updated, I don't know exactly why it would be it's annoying, but if you're doing new and updated, you should be able to map whatever's coming in the calendar creation to something that you're creating in SharePoint, because the purpose of this is, for what I can tell, is to basically say, hey, somebody created an Outlook event. I'm going to also put that in the SharePoint Online events list. You should be able to use the ID for that connector to make those updates happen. And it may be annoying to update it multiple times, but I don't know that it should break anything. As for stopping it completely, I don't know that there's really a way. It really depends on if it is truly duplicate. It sounds like a bug. It sounds like something related to something that's going on in Outlook that I would definitely maybe open a ticket on and ask some more questions on. If it's clearly a new or a create followed by an update, then I don't know that there's much you can do about it. It is very likely that whatever the person's doing when they create it is actually creating the record and then immediately updating it, and those two events are two events for the purpose of Power Automate, and you won't be able to really get rid of them. You would just be able to say, hey, I already did this. I've already got an update. Don't worry about it. Ignore it. Hopefully that helps. And if you have any more details about that, like whether or not you do know that it's a duplicate versus a new followed by an update, let us know.
Yeah. When do you think they're going to force everyone over to new Outlook?
The official word is years down the road.
Okay.
It is going to happen.
Because I'm having a hard time making the switch. I use it once in a while, but I am Still on the old. You're using the new, yeah.
Yeah, I've been using the new for
Yeah.
a while. So from what there was a further conversation about this in some other topics that recently there's actually I think it was November, October, someone from the product group got asked that question in one of their, AMA sessions, if you will.
Sure.
And her response was basically, it's going to happen,
Okay.
but at least 2 years, maybe more.
So we've got time.
I mean,
No, I need to
they're not
start
going to move it. They're not going to move it
trying
until
it
there's feature parity, right? And I'm doing air quotes, and the reason I'm doing air quotes is everyone's opinion about what feature parity means is different. And if you're hearing that and you're going, "Oh, I'll be able to do the same things I do in Outlook," that's not what that means.
Yeah.
You will be able to accomplish the same outcomes. You will not necessily be able to do
Do
the
it
same
way.
Do it the same way,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yep.
So it's really it seems like a nuance, a slight nuance, but for a lot of people it can
No,
be a
it's
huge deal
substantial, yeah.
because they want it to work the same. They don't want you to move the cheese. They don't want you to
I know,
have
yeah.
you reimagine how to do this work, but that's what they're going to do.
Right.
You're going to reimagine how Outlook functions in some of these ways. I don't know what all those are. I don't have details into all of those things, but
Right.
it really that's what's going to happen.
I hear ya. And Rachel, I agree with you. You wrote, new Outlook doesn't work for me, but new Teams does. I like new Teams as well. All right, we're getting some other questions here. Let's go to, this is a response. So I'll see if it is a new versus update action on the duplicate. It doesn't happen consistently, so it's been hard to troubleshoot. Yep,
Yeah.
I hear you on that. All right, got a question from Aaron here. What are the differences in a data verse calculated rollup and formula column? Still have a hard time understanding the differences and when to use.
So calculated column versus a rollup versus a formula.
Okay.
So a rollup is really it's really about rolling up data from sub elements, or sub tables or summarizing data, whereas calculated column is really taking data within the data set that you have, so the columns that you have in your table, and calculating it in some ways. The formula column isn't that much different. I don't use that too much. I would have to go look and see what the real difference is between the two. But a calculated column it's meant to be calculated, and I think it probably has to do with whether or not it's stored in the data or whether or not it's calculated at runtime. That would be my guess. But I could look quick while we're looking at the next.
Where's Michaela at?
I know.
Yeah,
We
if she's
gotta
on, she would be able to
start
probably
her
answer
in.
it quick.
Tanya was thrown in the chat too. Calculated columns don't work with flows.
Oh, they aren't
as another-
returned. Yeah,
yeah, as another
it's because
tip.
they're probably not stored, and I don't know which one's which, but
Okay. Okay, so I think while you're doing that, that was our last question, new question on YouTube chat. So looking over at Teams. Oh, 1 second. She's got a follow-up.
no, that was.
Oh, no, that's different.
Yep.
Okay. Tanya, you were writing, I had an update to Microsoft 365 a while ago that has broken my theme setting in all apps and my recent files shown in Excel. No matter how I change account versus options, when I restart the theme, it goes back to use system settings. Oh, that must be frustrating. In combination, these are concerning and frustrating. Yeah, that is frustrating. I don't know if we have a fix for that. It sounds like you've done a lot of troubleshooting. Oh, it just sounds like her
Theme settings in all apps.
It keeps defaulting back to use system setting.
Versus options. When I restart the theme goes back to using the system settings and combination.
This is where we usually just say call IT.
I mean, yeah. So it could be something with their IT. It could be something that has been set. I know, for example, in SharePoint. Some organizations can disable a bunch of the themes because they're like, hey, I don't, either for ADA compliance or for brand standards, they don't want people just choosing any random theme that they want to use. I mean, that's possible, but I would imagine somebody would have said something about that at some point in time. from an administrative perspective.
Right.
The best thing that I could say would be there are a bunch, which I don't know how much access you have to your system, Tanya, but there are a bunch of cached settings that get and cached locations for those pieces of software. And so basically, assuming you're talking like Microsoft 365 apps, so like Excel on your local machine, not Excel online. And if that's the case, definitely you could clear that cache and try again. But again, that may require a contact to your IT because they may be the only ones that can be able to clear that stuff.
Yeah. Oh man, that would be really frustrating though. Like I'm always in dark mode, and if it was
reset every single time, yeah,
I feel your pain on that, Tanya. Yeah. Okay. Did we have a follow up on the?
I don't have a follow up right now because I got distracted a minute, but it's the calculated columns are within the same table. Rollups are there, but I'm still not finding very much. I wasn't able to look very detail about formula columns.
Do you want to talk about Rachel's comment earlier about, thanks, I was able to help a teammate find her quote-unquote lost OneNote folders after SharePoint migration. Just knowing the difference of where things get saved from within Teams is pretty helpful.
Hey, love that. I bet you really made that coworker's day that you were able to recover that. That's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, it is really a huge thing for people to understand that Teams doesn't have a storage location. It doesn't store files. It stores things in SharePoint. And so then understanding, if you're doing a SharePoint migration as an example, that's moving something from one SharePoint site to another SharePoint site, and your team also has a SharePoint site. And so being able to look for those things in the right spots and understanding the difference between OneDrive and SharePoint related to a team can be a huge it can be very confusing and frustrating for a lot of users. It also can be very eye-opening in regards to, I get how this works now. I can put those pieces together, and I know what I can where I should be looking for this stuff.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I'm gonna switch us back over on Teams. We've got a great question all about collaboration, so we're gonna do that one, and then we'll skip back over to YouTube chat. So the question is, which Teams app would you recommend the most for an editable platform for internal and external users to come together and edit and share ideas? Not a discussion, but more of an ongoing list. And the question is, would we recommend OneNote? Never would recommend OneNote.
That's not true.
But I'd love to hear your answer on this one.
I mean, it's Loop as of today. If you can get your IT administrator to activate
external.
Does it say?
Yeah. Platform for internal and external users to edit together and share ideas.
So I mean, then it kind of is the only option within the Microsoft stack in particular would be OneNote or
a shared
Planner
or
a shared document or a a planner or a whiteboard. All of those things have external sharing. In the future, or even a OneNote, quite frankly, because you can also share a OneNote externally. But I think it's going to be one of those things if you want to stick within the Microsoft stack. If it was me, it would really depend on what you mean by share ideas. If you mean, really like throwing ideas up at the board, ideation.
Yeah, like we use whiteboard for that kind of.
Yeah, whiteboard would be the thing, or one of the equivalents, Whimsical, or any of those things.
Whiteboard is within Microsoft. Whimsical is
a separate app.
Yep.
Yeah. So it would be something like that if it was true ideation or kind of throwing stuff up at the board. If it's more like we need to collaborate on tasks, it would be Planner. If it's in the context of a meeting, it would probably be OneNote. It really depends on what you're actually trying to do specifically. But I think all of those will work for what you want.
Yep. Okay. So that was from Teams. Let's pop back over to our YouTube chat. One question was around Excel. This was also from Rachel. I'm really loving array formulas and sheets. Any idea when that fabulousness will become an Excel formula?
I don't know that it ever will. Like you can do something similar, but I don't know that it will ever be. Excuse me, I got a tickle in my throat. I should get some water. But I don't know that it will come to Excel. I have not seen anything major reworking in regards to new formulas and stuff coming into to Excel recently. Yeah, so I'm not sure that it ever will.
Okay. All right, another question here. Hello, Team Bulb. When designing a solution, how would you distinguish if some of the design elements are future-proof versus over-designed? Yeah, that's a fair point.
I mean, it's a fair concept. It's a very difficult eye of the beholder kind of thing. You know, the way that we would look commonly at that. Thank you, Mitch. The way we would look at that commonly would be, you know, what's the life cycle of this app? What's the life cycle of the project?
Our production assistant brought some water.
So like, let's say the project is, you know, a 6-month project, right? If you don't foresee a positive actual need to use that in the next year, so double the length of the project, why would you try to add it, right? In that much time, you're going to lose feature, like your requirements for that will change. Your business will change, right? If it's a 2-month project or a 6-month project and you're expecting to use it, you know, you might want to use this thing in 2 or 3 months after the project is complete. If it's not that much more effort, it might be worthwhile to add it into the project scope that you currently have, right? Generally speaking, we lean way more on don't waste the time. Don't make the effort right now unless you are confident you're going to need or want to do that. It's a question of whether or not this is a future goal, like this is the iteration 1 and we're planning on doing iteration 2, iteration 3, iteration 4, and it's in the timeline and in the plan, or is it maybe, I could see this being that way in the future. There's no reason to spend a ton of time.
Yeah. That's fair. Okay, this one's from Aaron. When syncing a SharePoint document library to your File Explorer, how do you unsync and remove the folder from your File Explorer? Oh, yeah, this is a great question. I don't want to delete a folder on accident.
So you can't delete or remove the folder. It doesn't exactly work that way. However,
should we share your screen at some point?
Yeah, I just want to make sure I'm choosing something that's good. Okay. Yeah, you can probably share my screen, Mitch. So these are all of our marketing blogs. Don't get insights into what we're publishing soon. You can see this one is like got a check mark, meaning that it's currently on my machine, and it's got a white check mark, which means that it is not always on my device. It just currently is on my device. It's my most recent one. Whereas the cloud says that it's not currently on my device, right? If I want to free up space, I can right click and click free up space, and that will actually go to syncing, and it's basically saying, nope, I don't want it on my machine anymore. And now this folder is no longer taking storage space on my machine. If I wanted to keep this on my machine, to always keep it on my machine, I can click always. And what this is going to do is it's going to change this thing to a green, filled in green check mark, which means regardless of whether or not I've opened this file recently, this will always be updated on my machine. If you delete this right here, and say I want to delete it, it will synchronize it and that's the case for any of these folders. So any of these folders will delete if I delete it here. And so you just don't want to delete them. They don't matter. Right.
Okay, but I think the question is, and I've wondered this too, let's say I don't want to see that in my File Explorer at all.
Yeah. That's not really an option.
Okay.
What about, how do I get rid of the thing on the left there, the marketing blogs?
Yeah.
This is the this is a great
good question.
Yeah. So this is actually a folder within a document library. So when you're syncing document libraries, you don't have to sync the entire document library. So let's say, I'm going to say it differently. If you said, I want to see all of these other folders, but I don't want to see this one, that's not possible. Like, you just can't do that.
Yeah,
or it would be
but
extremely
let's say
difficult.
you wanted to remove the main folder.
Yeah. So if you said, I just want to sync this one and not all of the rest of these.
Or what if I don't want to sync any of them at all?
Yeah, I mean, if you want to stop syncing, you can right click and stop syncing from here. You can also go into the OneDrive settings here to go change how that is what locations are syncing. Sorry,
Can you show that?
I mean, I can show some of it, but I don't want to stop syncing the stuff that I have. So
right.
that's not going to work.
No, it's okay.
But
Because
basically,
I think that is kind of the core of the question, which I've bumped up against that too, is maybe you're organizing your files, you've realized you have way too much stuff on your File Explorer, and you just want to clean that view up. So instead of just freeing up the space, it's more of a visual, I want to just not see it anymore. I want to remove it.
Yeah,
but I don't want to delete it.
What I'm saying is two things. Number one, I wouldn't recommend doing that because it can be very confusing. Because now when you're having a conversation with someone else, no one sees the same thing. If you're really worried about it, like I said before, you can choose to sync a particular folder. You can come in here and I want to turn off.
She just plugged in YouTube. I want the marketing-blogs part gone. So she wants to unsync the entire library.
I think
Say that again?
She wants the marketing/blogs.
Yeah, I mean, okay, yes.
But
so that would be just this. That would be stop syncing.
But my question, I think, with what you're saying is this would be confusing because you want everyone to see the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
I think what I'm confused about there is I don't see marketing blogs right now on my home machine because I haven't decided I want that at all. I've never chosen to sync that to my computer.
Yep.
So what you choose to do with your Internet Explorer, not Internet Explorer, with your file folder shouldn't affect what I see at all.
Yes, except that for this is an advanced scenario, right?
Oh.
And so if I'm helping someone who's not familiar with how this stuff works, and and they go, I really just don't want to see that.
Yeah.
Make it easy for me, and I go in and change that in 6 months.
Why would you go in and change it for them?
Because it's a pain point for you, and I'm IT, and you're like, hey, I don't want this, do this, and I don't want to spend the time to learn about the technology. I just want that thing to go away.
Well, I don't think that's what she's necessarily
No, I know.
asking.
The thing that I'm saying is that you want to be really careful.
4 questions in one.
Well, I'm simply saying when you think about this, when you think about doing this, the person needs to understand what they're doing, right?
Sure.
They need to understand all the nuances of why they're doing that, because people often come and say, I don't want to see that because it's annoying. I don't need to see it. It's not my thing, right?
I was on that team last year and I was syncing it, and I'm not on that team this year and I don't want to sync it anymore.
In particular, what she's asking, which is, I want to just unsync this whole thing. It's right here. You would stop syncing this. The nuance of, well, I want to see some of these folders but not others of them is less about, I'm not on that thing anymore. I want to stop syncing it. It's very a personal thing about, for today, these are the 4 things I care about. I don't know how many times I've helped or answered a question to someone about something like this, and then 6 months from them, they don't remember that they did that, and they don't understand how they did it, and somebody else is saying, well, you're on a new piece, and you have this folder, and you can't see it, and they don't know because they didn't, they weren't involved in it. It was just a mechanical thing to make their life easier. And so that's the thing to worry about if you're going to get into the details of this. That's all I was saying.
No, I think this is common, though, and I can see a lot of people are having responses to this on both Teams and on YouTube. So it's obviously something most of us have come across, especially if you are using a lot of files locally on your computer. So definitely a good point. Great question.
It's 100. It's a great thing, and the big thing is understanding the difference between the cloud and the solid circle and the not filled in circle. Understanding that you can unsync an entire folder. Understanding that you can sync a particular folder within a library. So, like I said before, if you just want to, I don't need all of the channels. Let's say you're in a team and I have a bunch of channels, so I have a bunch of folders. You can sync just one of them, all of that. The
clarifying question, I think this is key. I think it's good Aaron followed up with this. So let's say in the scenario, I don't know if you're still sharing his screen, but the question is, if I stop syncing, will it remove from the File Explorer or just stop syncing from that point forward?
It'll go like... I think it's a little bit nuanced about how you had it all set up. But for example, let's...
Well, you don't have to.
Let's stop syncing. You're going to make me do it. It's fine. It's fine.
Not.
It's fine. We'll stop syncing it. So, I wanted to go to a
This is
different
exciting.
one here.
Is there a scenario where someone doesn't see that stop syncing option if it's like disabled by IT? Is that a real thing?
I mean, it's possible depending on there are some things that automatically will always get synced. So, for example, we require my documents, video, pictures, and something else to always be synced. It's a way to do backup for us, so we don't have to back up your whole machine as long as you're storing stuff there. It's synced, so you will not be able to remove those from your syncing. So you will always have to sync those in particular, as an example.
Right.
And for whatever reason,
Okay, while Matt's kind of looking through that and going deep into the syncing world, if you're just joining us now, welcome to Office Hours. You can drop chats or drop your questions in either of the chats if you're joining on YouTube or on Teams. We're here to talk through all Microsoft 365 questions. We did just write a guidebook that I wanted to share. All about internal communication, which touches on a lot of the topics that we've covered today. If you're interested in that, we'll post a link in one of the chats too to that. And we also started something called our membership community. It's called The Workplace. And if you're interested in joining that, we will also post some information about that as well. This syncing question, I think, is one that touches on a lot because, especially in the new year when you're trying to clean up and decide if things are efficient and you're able to access things the way you want, or even onboard new members to teams and help them get set up. I know it affects probably all of us in this room.
Yeah, so I have a couple examples that I'm gonna see if I can find another one here. I probably can just do it here. So the thing
Do you
is,
want your screen shared?
yeah, if it's not being, I don't know if it is anymore. So let's say I try to stop. What it says right here, what's going to happen? It'll stop syncing. Locally available files will remain on this device, while online-only files will be removed. So in the case of this folder example, I just made this one cloud only. This one is local, and then if I've got any screenshots, yeah, I've got a couple screenshots. These should stay, the rest should go. So if I stop syncing, what we should see when that completes is
it just did it.
These things were the folders that I have that were like already here are here. The things that were not are gone. Like they're no longer on this machine. And it's specifically file based. So like there's no files in here. There were files originally in there. And it's the same thing with everything, which I'm going to try to remember, which was intranet something or other. Like this one, for example, here is this file. And the reason they do that is because if I stop syncing while I'm offline or when, whatever's going on, I may have things locally that I don't want to lose. So anything that is local will stay. Anything that is not will go. That is the basic gist of it. And then when I come back and I try to sync again, so I can go and actually sync that process again, it will just kind of resync over the top of the old one. So hopefully that answers the questions. It is not
It is a bit
simple,
of a tricky,
Yeah, it's not a simple thing, which goes back to my point about when I hear people say, I just want to not see these things.
Yeah, I just want to not sync it anymore.
Yeah.
Help me do that right.
It's not that simple.
Jay wrote here, what IT admin doesn't love a good game of folder hide and go seek.
Yeah,
that's so true.
100% right. That's 100% right.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm not really sure what necessarily our best practices, because I get everyone's got to do what's going to work for them. Maybe you have to work in offline mode a lot, so you do have to have a lot of things synced locally. Like, I don't know your business, I don't know how your team works, but ultimately, the more you can keep not in your file folder, the better, I think is what
not on your local machine.
Yeah, not on your local machine.
100%.
But yeah, we've worked with companies, construction companies, I think are a great example. If you're, out in the field and you have to download things to your device because you don't have Wi-Fi out on the job site, you got to have workarounds. So.
Yep.
All right. Let's see what other questions we have. We had a couple others come through.
Is my screen sharing again, or Mitch, or no?
No.
Okay.
Everyone's making good points on some of these. Let's see. We answered that one. Is there...
Our chat is full of OneDrive syncing.
I know. Everyone was engaging.
Somebody asked a great question.
Yeah.
It's gotten a lot of...
I have heard you should not sync at folder level and would agree from experience. Yep, agreed with that. Okay, this was one question about it. What is the difference between sync and add shortcut to OneDrive?
So I was thinking about this earlier when the whole what IT admin doesn't love a good game of hold folder hide and seek. If you're super technical, if you're into either deep operating system or Linux-based stuff, symbolic links is a thing, which is a folder but not really a folder. It's like a pointer to a folder, and you can't really tell what it is. And that's kind of what this is. So let's say I want to, when you add a shortcut to a drive to your OneDrive, it's basically Microsoft's way of saying, well, I work in this team all the time, but I can't ever remember where that thing is, and I don't want to have to remember where that thing is. So I'm just going to put a shortcut in my OneDrive so that I can click in my OneDrive and get directly to the folder that is really in this team or in this SharePoint site or in this other place, which is similar to in Teams, as an example. You can actually go and you can actually come in here.
Here, let's share screen.
Yeah, if you want to share your screen, my screen again, you can actually add a shortcut to OneDrive here, but you can also, where is it? New.
The follow-up
right
question
there.
here is, so it's not that different than adding a shortcut icon in Windows Explorer?
No, it's just to your OneDrive.
Yeah.
Like that's the big thing, is it adds a link in your OneDrive. I can't see it here for some reason. Maybe it's the new Teams, but there should be like add another cloud storage space, and maybe I don't have something enabled on that for my Teams right now. But that allows you to basically add a link in a team to a folder or a document library that's in a different library or a different location within SharePoint. So there's a bunch of different ways that you can make these things interlinked. Which there are reasons that, and I've used them before. It's definitely something you can use, you should use in specific scenarios. And the specific scenarios is the really important piece.
Yeah.
It's not something I would use lightly. It's not something I would use, a lot of times I'll end up setting a team up for someone and they might go, hey, but I've got this other thing over here. I'm not gonna be the one to set up some fancy link situation for them. I'm going to tell them what to do, and I'm going to make them understand what it is, because I'm going to step away, and they need to understand what they're doing, because it can create lots of questions.
Yeah. Yep. Okay, switching gears, unless we've got a follow-up on that. Is it true that Microsoft is pushing add shortcut to OneDrive and may take away the sync option?
I don't think so.
Okay.
They don't do the same thing at all.
Yep.
I don't think that is the case at all. I think that Microsoft is trying to find is in a challenging situation where OneDrive itself is heavily used because it's deeply integrated into all of the operating system and what people do on a daily basis, and people are very familiar with it and very it's very accessible to them. The sync option in particular is kind of completely separate, and I can't imagine that going away anytime soon.
Mm-hmm. Okay, switching gears away from the sync for just a minute. Another question here kind of about Microsoft and what's coming down the pipe. Let's see. Let me find it again. Where did it go? Okay, here we go. So you may... Wait. No, where was it? I thought it was from... Okay, maybe it got deleted. I don't know. Follow up on the sync one. We can keep going with that.
Okay.
Erin was saying she has a market type logs type folder.
An actual synced folder.
However, it is not showing up in the settings to stop syncing. There is no cloud in the status either.
Which means it's not being synced. Somebody removed it already. Which means it should be safe to delete from your local file system.
Okay.
So what likely happened there is exactly what I just did, which is it either got unsynced by you or unsynced because the target source is gone, whatever that might be. If there is no status column that's filled in with a cloud or a checkbox or anything else. It means whatever that is not something that's currently being synced or logged in OneDrive. If I were you, I would probably take that whole folder, copy it, put it into like in my downloads folder or desktop or someplace, and maybe even zip it up if it's got a lot of stuff in it. And then I would delete it. And that way you at least have something if you need it in the future. But assuming that you truly don't have a status column that has anything and it's not showing up in the list of synced folders, it's not being synced.
Okay. All right. This other question is more about Microsoft 365 as a whole. So I've read nested Microsoft 365 groups are on the roadmap for Teams membership. Any word on when that feature may become available?
I don't have any idea of when that will become available. I do believe it's on the roadmap. I don't know 100% how it will work. As with a lot of these things, like I was mentioning before, their solution may not always meet what some people are thinking. There was a big thing about being able to use distribution lists and stuff to do to create groups or memberships in groups, but it doesn't actually. It's a one-time thing, as an example. I don't think the group membership piece will work the same way. I think it's actually the fix for that. I think they're going to use that and actually make that be something that you can have that nested dynamic membership. But I don't really know. But it will definitely make things more complex and more featureful in the future. So,
on the topic of roadmap, another roadmap question. Has anyone heard if custom images will be re-enabled for Teams announcement headers? We used pre-formatted images for IT Alert and company news to draw attention to the message.
Yeah. I haven't heard anything more about when that might come back as a feature. It's not something that I think a lot of people were using. And if I had to guess, a lot of people were probably not using it very effectively anyways. It's been our experience with images that the vast majority of people don't exactly understand how to create images that are good for that type of purpose.
Right. It has plagued us for years in web development. Like you put a gradient over it. What if, should I put words in the image too? You just get a lot of junk, but I don't know if that's the reason why. Could be.
I'm in the preview build. Actually, can you give me 1 second. Don't do anything yet. Don't share my screen yet.
So Matt is in the new teams.
You've already burst that bubble.
Oh, I did?
Just
Okay.
so you know.
Wow. Let me at least close a little bit of this stuff. Okay. So in my current version, which we're on the preview ring, there is add image here. So if this is what I'm pretty sure this is what you were talking about. You should be able to do it at least in the version that we have, which is not the same as what everybody else will have. It is a preview ring. We have a preview ring for all of our people. But I was just checking, and it is here at this point.
Can you figure out what version number you're on?
Yeah, for sure. It's like under settings, I think.
We'll get back to you on that.
Yeah, so I'm in preview. I can post it in our chat.
And yep, Jay was making the point. Plus, it wasn't responsive, which was a nightmare for mobile users.
Yep.
So, good points all around. All right. So just resetting again, go ahead and post any other questions you have. I'm going to kind of look through here and make sure we didn't miss anyone's questions while we were all having good discussion about the complications of syncing folders to your file explorer. I think we got everyone's question. If we didn't, go ahead and repost it. Otherwise, we are starting to come up on our time. I would love to hear if anyone's got big projects or goals for 2024. I'm sure this week's been a week of planning for people. If you have a word that you're working towards for 2024, we're going to be having our company update in a week here, setting our vision for Q1. Yeah, feel free to share and post that.
What's yours, Emma?
Oh, man, Mitch, that's a good question. Probably consistency. I don't know if that's a cop-out, but it feels like the one thing that it's so hard to do the things you're supposed to do consistently, right? So 2024 will hopefully be my year of consistency.
I think she's referring to our blog writing process. Is that?
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
We strong-armed her into writing a blog or an outline for a blog this morning because it's part of our jobs to all play a role in that. And she had to put down, quote unquote, real work to write an outline for a blog, and it was painful.
Yeah, the creative side of writing, for some reason, always plagues me. But
so you're going to be consistent with that going forward.
Yeah, well, I think if you can get a process down, and this goes back actually to the very first question we answered today about time tracking and understanding the habits you fall back on when you do have a lot of work or a lot of chaos. You fall to your processes, and we have good ones. We just have to do them.
I'll plug James Clear's quote. You will not rise to the level of your goals. You will fall to the level of your systems.
There you go. Is that the Atomic Habits author? Yeah. Yep.
Taming ADHD and stick with one go-to loop, OneNote, planner list. That second part, I love it. We struggle with a little bit because I think most of the people on our team want to stick with one, which is loop, and we're stuck with at least 2, maybe 3.
I think you'll be able to cross out OneNote and lists if things go well this year.
Yeah, with the new planner, we've got high hopes. Mitch actually did a great video recap on what's coming for the new planner. Mitch, you should post that. for the group.
Okay.
If you're on YouTube, it's over on our channel, but we do have really high hopes for what's coming in Planner, and we think it'll be a good integration with Loop.
Perfect
as well.
segue. Tony was at the same time was asking about,
Oh boy.
what is Teams going to automatically transfer my existing Planner stuff? Do I need to figure out a way to back up everything and have out there? The answer is you don't have to do any of it because it's not really that new. It's a new planner experience. It's not a new planner. So all of your data is going to be where it's always been.
Yep.
You'll just be able to see it differently and see it more consistently. And there'll be a bunch of new features that have been added into all of these tools and all of the suite of tools related to do and all of that. So you shouldn't think of it as a new team or a new planner. It's more of a new. And it's not really that new. I mean, it's what Microsoft's been working on for quite a long time now, which is to just bring all of these things together under one umbrella. Hopefully that's helpful.
Tanya says, are you trying to discourage me from applying to work at Bulb?
OneNote forever.
Hashtag OneNote forever.
OneNote is not something that Emma is it's very interesting topic, OneNote situation. She was in love with OneNote.
I did really like OneNote.
And then she got Loop, and now she is a OneNote hater. I am not a OneNote hater. I am simply pragmatic about it and recognize that there's a place for both of them at the moment. But I'm hopeful for a day when OneNote will not be something that I ever have to deal with.
And, Loop is so not perfect at this point either. So it's hard because as much as I want to just switch, and I think it was Mary that made the point, hey, we need to collaborate with external users. Well, Loop is definitely not there. So if you need to collaborate with external users, a lot of these things aren't going to work yet. If you're on YouTube, you can't see that Tanya's commenting
Tanya's
back.
trolling us. She's like,
I love it.
this Loop stuff that you guys have been sharing doesn't ring with me at all.
And then Tony says Loop is being taken away
from EDU in April. Yeah.
What? We need to voice our opinion, Matt.
Yeah.
Give your case for enabling Loop.
Right.
I mean, this isn't enabling Loop. This is that one's like, it sounds like they're either taking it out of the subscription or they're just taking it getting rid of it completely.
Yeah.
But I would imagine it has something to do with student involvement. Would be my guess. There's some reason I would imagine. But that doesn't mean that they shouldn't come up with a technical solution for that. It's the same kind of thing with GCC.
Straight to the product team.
We probably will mention it to them, yes.
But overall, Jay, I think that's a great goal, kind of talking about like taming ADHD and sticking to one process or trying to figure out one thing that works for your team. That is one of the main topics, actually, of our internal guidebook that we wrote, all about internal communication. Or, I'm sorry, not an internal guidebook. It's a guidebook about internal communication.
Yeah.
And, I think one of the main tenets is figuring out what's going to work for your team and then clearly communicating what we're going to do as a team. And from a leadership perspective, part of that is figuring out, okay, this is the one thing we're going to use, or this is the combination we're going to use, and then how do we roll that out in a clear way? One thing we talk about a lot is always explaining the why. So maybe it is that you're going to use OneNote. Maybe there are some capabilities that people don't like, but we have to use it because X, Y, Z. So that's something we talk about in that guidebook. We have poured a lot of hours into writing it and putting it together. It's a lot of Matt Dressel brain dump from years of working with clients and seeing what's worked. So would highly recommend checking that out. I think we have a mini guidebook version that's actually available for free on our website. So if any of that sort of conversation interests you, definitely take a look, and we hope that some of the tips in there will actually be applicable to what you're working on in 2024. So this brings us to our time, I think, but thank you everyone so much for joining. We will be right back here the first week of February for office hours, our second one of 2024. You can register for that on our website. And if we were able to help you, definitely give us a shout out or fill out that testimonial link that we posted. We love to hear, how you can apply some of the tips that we've talked about. Thanks, Matt, for your time. Thanks, Mitch, for being behind the desk. And we'll see you all. Cheers. Happy New Year.